for joining us for our Chamber Connection podcast. Thanks to our friends at Speakeasy, we are here for the next 52 weeks, bringing you guests from around our community, elected officials, business owners, folks doing great work here in Macomb County. So, sit back, take a listen, and we hope you'll join us every week for our Chamber Connection. Hi, and thank you for joining us for this edition of our Chamber Connection. My name is Stacy Ziarko, and I'm the president and CEO of the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're here today at Speakeasy Podcast Studios in Sterling Heights to bring you more information about our chamber membership and what we're doing over here in Macomb County. My guest today is First Vice President of First State Bank, Amy Persyn. Amy, how are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you for having me today.
Amy has been my friend for so long that this is going to be a lot of fun today, and I'm looking forward to having you here. So first of all, we go way back. What are we on? Job number 3 of mine that we've worked together on. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, Amy, as you know, you're the wife, you're the mom.
Yeah. I have been in Macomb County my entire 41 years on this planet. I've gone along the coast, so to speak, from Chesterfield to Clinton Township, St. Clair Shores. And now me and my husband are raising our 2 young boys, Henry and Elliot. They go to Lance Cruz schools, and they are 6 and 9 and into football, baseball, everything boys have to love in life, right?
I can't believe that they are 6 and 9.
Yep. I'm married to my husband, Dave, who works at Consumers Energy. Go Consumers. And then we've just been trugging along, really just doing a lot of what it means to be a family, but balancing all of the wonderful things that come with being working parents and making things happen. So life is good there.
So you have been in the financial industry for a really long time.
I have.
Now you are with one of our best partners, and I can't say enough about First State Bank. They are the chamber champion this year. Tell us a little bit about First State Bank, and you call yourselves a community bank and what that means.
Sure. So First State Bank has been around a lot longer than I have. We actually celebrated 2 weeks ago our 105th anniversary, which means that we have been in the community, in Macomb County in particular, South Macomb County, for 105 years, taking care of the neighborhoods, the people, and the needs in the community. And community banking is a little different, right? Because a lot of people have lots of choices in banks. There's large national banks, there's regional banks. There's credit unions, and then community banks, which is kind of a special niche and near and dear to my heart. We are personally a family-owned bank. So we're privately held, we're not publicly traded, and we still have the legacy of the people who initially opened the bank and have passed it down through generations. So that's something that's a little unique because the people who run the bank are from the area. And so what happens to the bank and the relationships created by the bank really matter to them personally. So they have the interest of the community in mind.
And that also means that, you've got a lot of history behind you, because when you had the economic downturn in 2008, a lot of banks like this merged or were sold. And 105 years later, First State Bank is still here.
Well, I can say, from my experience in banking, I actually went through the troubling times in 2008 at another community bank that existed in Macomb County that unfortunately wasn't able to weather the downturn. I was at Citizen State Bank. I specialized in marketing and financial literacy there, and I've been able to carry that forward with me. But the unique thing about First State Bank is that we have a mindset of growth while still being very conservative and making sure we're well managing our funds and the funds of the consumers that choose us. And so we take a conservative approach in terms of making sure that the bank's mission and vision is to grow, but grow responsibly, to where we're handling that growth and making sure that we can still coexist with other institutions in our neighborhood. So that's really unique, and that's what's been so great about being there, is that we reach out outside the bank to make sure things are progressing, but we still, are very financially responsible and committed to remaining in the community and having that as our first priority.
So I think another thing that I see as a partner of First State Bank is, you want to see the community around you grow too.
That's right.
And so talk a little bit about why it is so important to you and to the bank to be as invested in our community as you are.
Well, it really is the spirit of community banking, because when you really think about a community bank, the money that is generated or invested into the bank then stays in that same community. So if you think about a bank branch and the people who open accounts there, the money on deposit, the loans made, and any revenues made from that is actually then circulating back into those same neighborhoods. It's done through jobs, it's done through community involvement, it's done through investment in businesses which then employ people in that same community. So it's really a unique business model because we know that the assets that we have are not leaving the community. The second point there that you made is really important because what we're invested in and what we choose to do with the money that we've been able to enjoy in terms of revenue is then passed along to initiatives. And I'll speak a little bit more in detail about some of those initiatives that are near and dear to people who are living right near our bank branches, right near First State Bank's operations center. We really take a localistic approach to the decisions that we make at the top and then throughout our branch network.
Talk about some of your favorite projects that First State Bank has allowed you to be a part of.
Well, how much time do we have, Stace?
We have all day. Yeah.
All day. Well, I'm going to talk about the one that's most recognizable to many people, but that is probably the most near and dear to me first, which is Banksgiving.
Absolutely.
Banksgiving is a program that is really charged with connecting local nonprofits with the bank in a way that's meaningful other than just a one-time check. So what we've done is we've gone out to the community and we've asked, what work are people doing that maybe most people in our community don't know about? How can funds from First State Bank impact the growth or a special project that organization has? But more importantly, what can we do to get the word out about those organizations and the work we're doing so that others want to get involved, other small businesses, individuals who have a heart for giving back? How can they find funding through others by being more visible? And that's really the cool thing that we've seen out of the program. I'm going to tell you a personal story about how it's impacted my life through an example of one of our Banksgiving recipients. So folks apply or individuals apply on behalf of a nonprofit. The person who nominates somebody doesn't have to work there. They don't have to utilize the services. They don't have to be affiliated in any real meaningful way. But many times people who volunteer for an organization or work at an organization are the nominators. So we had one fortunate circumstance of funding a local organization called Kids on the Go last year. They were nominated. We use a scoring rubric. We figure out who's going to come to the top, and then we put it out to the public. Well, the public has a decision factor by voting through our platform. And Kids on the Go was one of our winners. They were a recipient of a $5,000 gift that we gave. Now, Kids on the Go was really special in general because they were doing amazing work by doing day camps for kids with special needs. And they had found out that insurance doesn't cover a lot of programming, especially for kids who have special needs over the summer. So they started years and years ago and found out a way to help fill that gap for families so that their kids had something to do and could continue to progress over the summer. So without knowing much about the organization except for what the Banksgiving submission indicated, I went out to give them their $5,000 check and make arrangements to make a video about them. And in doing so, had recently found out that my son was having some special needs and that the school had identified that he needed a little extra help. And as a parent, I was struggling. You know, I'm working. We're already providing additional resources to the same son. And meeting Christy, the CEO of Kids on the Go, just through happenstance because of the Banksgiving program, I had said, wow, I could really use some advice from you and maybe some recommendations. And her answer to me was, why don't you bring him to camp? So it's just amazing that it just kind of encapsulates the story because my son ended up going to camp. It was a wonderful experience. And it really is the essence of community. Me as a person in business that was able to find a connection through happenstance to this organization because of Banksgiving, was able to provide funding. But more importantly, I was able to see as an end user how important a program like this is and the fact that they can't do it without local partners like ours.
The fact that they've been there for how many years now, doing great work, providing great services for our community. And you were able to put them on the map and expand the services that they're going to be able to provide.
Yeah, the really cool thing about the program, like you said, Stacy, is not only do we go in and give a check, But we take some time and we hire a videographer to put together a story about what they're doing with the funds they're receiving. And we take it a step further because we know that nonprofits don't have budgets for things like advertising and getting the word out.
What's that?
Right?
Wait, what do you mean?
Right. So many of them don't have advertising budgets. They're known by word of mouth, referrals, and that's really important, that relationship building aspect. But what we've done is we've taken those videos and we've put aside part of our advertising and market budget to be able to tell their story alongside ours. Why community banking matters is because it matters to organizations like Kids on the Go, like organizations like TCB Youth Mentoring, organizations like Gilda's House. I mean, there's so many worthy organizations that we funded. But the coolest thing is that we've been able to allocate some money to be able to put those ads out. Amazingly, I'll tell you, some of our nonprofit videos have over 250,000 views on YouTube. To me, that's the bigger value because hopefully it's touched somebody's heart out there that wants to give back, that wants to get involved, wants to tell the story, or even better yet, a mom or somebody just like me that didn't know that resource existed, and maybe they navigate their way to help for their family, a loved one, or just somebody that they know that needs a resource and wouldn't otherwise have known.
I think that is probably the biggest thing that you can do for a nonprofit. Yes, funds are great. Every nonprofit needs funds, but also every nonprofit needs awareness.
Right. Awareness is huge. And so if that's one of the gifts that we can give back in our community is to be able to create awareness for the good work of others, nonprofit and small business, to say the least. I mean, it's important for nonprofits. We do the same for small businesses in our community. We really take the approach of localism, and we take our responsibility as a community bank to highlight good works of our neighbors seriously. It's part of who we are, and it's part of what we hope other people will do for us too. I mean, we're a small business. That's a fact that gets overlooked. I mean, we understand the plight of small businesses and nonprofits because we too go through a lot of the same circumstances. I mean, we're competing in environments where there's very large institutions that have lots of advertising power, but we hope it's the relationship and the localism that really helps set us apart. And a program like Thanksgiving is really one of those that we've tried to take a unique approach, and we've tried to make sure that there's a lot of meaning and power behind the program, regardless of the amount we're able to give these organizations. It gives us something to look forward to every year, too. I mean, who doesn't want to give away?
Oh, it's a fun event to be a part of, and the gratefulness of the organizations that you've been able to support. So small businesses. You have supported small businesses for years.
Right.
As a financial institution, as, small business loans, small business support. You helped your customers with PPP loans during the pandemic. But one of the things that First State Bank did during the pandemic, kind of right at the start, was the county had an opportunity to receive some grants that we could give to small businesses. But we needed a match and we needed a supporter. And your CEO, Gene, who just retired recently, Gene Lovell, he was the first one to sign up to be a match.
Absolutely. Gene now serves as the chairman of our board, but it harkens to the spirit of community banking. When the trouble coming from the COVID epidemic started to seep through to the business community, it was very big concern for the bank. But more concerning was those customers and those organizations in our neighborhoods that would falter or find hard times or have a hard time retaining employees because of payroll needs. We really recognize that although we could be having some difficult times ahead, that more importantly, that those people that employ people in our neighborhoods were really important to keep afloat. And so it was a no-brainer. We thought about how could we get involved, and Gene took the lead there.
Totally
it really wasn't.
He served on the review committee, to review grants. With all that you all had going on, he's helping us review grants.
Because just as important as our operations, and we have a really strong team at First State Bank, so I know he knew that the team was going to navigate through the difficult times that were ahead, or especially the unknowns, and make sure that we were able to pivot as a bank and provide the services people needed in a different way. But more importantly, he knew it was important for us to invest our resources, our services, especially in reviewing grants and things like that and looking at viability. But in addition to that, it was just the heart of who we are. Yeah. If we could step in and step up, I think we did a really generous match. And we wanted to make sure it impacted as many businesses as possible. Not just, and there was the thing that I thought was most beautiful about it, and I might brag about this for a second. I'm a marketing director. PR is in my roundhouse. And I think it's important for the community to know that these decisions were made with no PR benefit in mind.
Absolutely.
There wasn't something that we pulled together a committee and said, will this make us look great? We did it altruistically from the bottom of our hearts because of the fact that that was the right thing to do for the community at the time. And it didn't really matter if we got credit or not.
Well, and I think the other thing that you all do well is you form relationships with your customers. So
That's true.
I'm sure as the pandemic happened, you were getting calls from your customers or your bankers were saying, oh my gosh, what do I do? Because as a First State Bank customer myself,
Right.
I know that like our banker called to check on us. Like,
That's nice.
you know, he knows us. He knew us by name. He called to make sure that we were okay. You don't often find that your banker is concerned with how you're doing.
That's right. So that's the spirit of community banking. I'll share a couple of facts because I actually wrote them down.
Please do.
Hoping that we had this conversation is that really what sets a community bank apart is that when times get tough in a neighborhood or a community or a county, that a community bank steps up. It's not the time that we reflect and look inward and say what's going to be best for our bottom line, our financials. We really think, where are the gaps here and what our community needs to thrive or to at least weather a storm? And then we start figuring out ways to step up. And because we don't have as much red tape, we can be nimble.
You guys are quick.
So
you can
people
make
think
decisions fast.
We're small, so we must not have that power. But actually, one of our biggest assets is our ability to be nimble because we don't have to think through waves and waves of bureaucracy internally. We really can get together, brainstorm, and come up with unique solutions as long as they're within, the guidelines that the government sets out. 60% of all PPP loans that were given during the pandemic were given by a community bank, which is kind of startling. And that's a nationwide fact. And it's because of the fact that small to middle-sized businesses that most needed them many times would choose a community bank, but also had access quickly to a community bank's program. And that was able to retain 49 million jobs during the pandemic because of the 60% of loans that were made by community banks.
Can I tell my PPP story?
Sure.
So
I love it.
Obviously, I said we use First State Bank at the chamber, and I filled out my application, and I had trouble with our scanner that day. I could not get our paperwork to scan. So I left the chamber office, which is on M59 in Shaner, and I drove to 19 mile into Quinder, which every bit of 6 miles.
Right.
My banker was waiting for me to scan all my paperwork, make sure I did everything complete. I dropped the paperwork off. By the time I got back to my office, my loan was deposited in our account.
That's incredible.
Like, we're talking 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That, we were lucky that we were a part of the second round of PPP funding, but that you guys made that happen so quickly. I didn't have to wait. I didn't have to wonder. And I think that's a testament to who you are and the power that you have.
It's nice. I mean, not everything went perfectly during that time.
Did any? Come on.
I know. But every single person, it didn't matter what your role was, especially in that area, was committed. I mean, there was people working through the night till 10 o'clock. There was people staying up in the middle of the night to make sure that every single thing that went through could be reviewed and submitted as quickly as possible to the government. So there was people that literally stayed up 24 hours a couple times just to make sure that every single person who had submitted was communicated with, reviewed, and even when the process wasn't perfect, because it was confusing, sometimes even for us in terms of the government guidelines, because they changed very quickly and regularly, and some of the things they handed down weren't too clear. But we made sure to pivot. We made sure to do what was best by our customers. And even there was a couple times that we were able to at least give guidance to people who didn't bank with us.
Absolutely.
And that mattered to us just as much, because when it comes to a time like that or a crisis, it doesn't matter if you bank with us or not. We want what's going to be best for everybody. And keeping our communities afloat was tantamount. I mean, it was just our number one job. So that was really special, and it was awesome. And for even those don't bank with us, that we saw successes elsewhere, or we could refer them to another bank in the community, it was super helpful to see people get through that difficult time. We take a lot of pride in that, and it was really a test of our team. But we realized that a tough team gets tested in fire, and we came out on top. It was great.
Speaking of your team, your leadership team is very active in our community. They serve on multiple boards.
Yes, that's right.
They are representation on chamber boards and nonprofit boards. You serve on our chamber board. You are our past board chair. Very, very active in the chamber. Why does that go back to your community involvement and why you choose to be that the bank encourages your leadership to take active roles in these organizations?
Yes. The reason why is because we truly believe in the power of relationships. Community banks, ours in particular, specialize in relationships. What better ways to build relationships by serving others? So it's really the idea of serving others first. I mean, we think that, for instance, my service on the chamber board, some of the people that I've met on the chamber board are not people that I would meet in my typical networking circles. There's been so many times when there's been something that's come up, not just for me, but somebody in another network or one of
Right.
our business customers where I've said, have you explored talking to so and so? Did you know somebody is working on that here? It's the relationships that I've built on the board or through chamber activities that have really allowed me to connect the dots for myself, but for others.
Yeah.
And we see the power in that. Aside from the chamber boards, we serve on many nonprofit boards because one of the greatest gifts you can give a nonprofit is to really be able to bring your expertise to the table because they have a small bench operationally.
Yep.
So when I can bring information about practices in advertising or marketing, or even about banking, I can't tell you how many people have needed some banking advice, and whether or not they're choosing to work with us doesn't really matter. But being able to be a guidepost or give some direction to people in terms of questions they have about my industry, very helpful. And then last but not least, I mean, we really believe that service is a civic duty. I mean, civics is something that we don't talk about a lot, but in order to be a good business in general, having a civic mindset is super important. So we still participate in things like Rotary and Kiwanis and other civic clubs that really are doing some of the quietest but most important work in our community, and really having a sense of brotherhood or sisterhood that really create those relationships then that as a subset of that whole relationship becomes something that we can help somebody in their personal financial life or with their business.
And Amy, I have to tell you, like I said, I've known you a long time. I actually met Amy when her 9-year-old was born.
That's right.
But this is like a perfect role for you, don't you think?
I couldn't think of a better place to work. I would really say that this is a place where I'm able to scratch every itch that I have when it comes to things that I would be passionate about.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love to get up in the morning and know that they're going to be able to connect with people who are passionate about the community too? Find ways to do things that are meaningful but also fun.
Right.
I mean, I have a lot of fun in my role, but then also serve at an institution and use some of the analytics and some of the information and data and background I have in financial services to really see something that you believe in grow, prosper, and help others to grow and prosper as well. I mean, I am literally in the best possible position I could be. And it's in my hometown. I mean, I get to be where I was born and raised. And I have some friends that have gone out of the state and done some really glamorous things and had some really kick behind jobs. But I wouldn't choose to be anywhere but here because I literally love what I'm doing. I love the people that I'm doing it with too.
And that, I think is what we can all aspire to do. I feel a lot of the same thing where it's like a lot of what we do for work is really something we would probably do anyway for fun.
It is. And I think, most of my social life is around stuff I do for the bank.
I see Amy sometimes 3 times to 4 times a week.
Yeah. And it's no accident.
No.
And I really hope that at the end of, my career in financial services, that when I look back, the legacy that this bank has left behind in terms of being able to create a thriving neighborhood or touch the lives of people who are in need and the things that we've done to grow as a financial institution have really added value is all I could ask for. I mean, my family personally benefits from the wonderful things that the bank does. And my mission is to see financial well-being grown throughout our community, within our employee base, just anything that we can do to kind of further the idea of financial well-being and prosperity at the roots of where we started.
And I think a lot of us can take lessons from First State Bank. Amy, thank you for being here. Thanks for being my friend.
Oh my gosh,
and
thanks
taking
for
me
being my
along
friend.
down this journey that we get to go on every day. So we appreciate you being here. I can't thank First State Bank enough for their support. We appreciate you all for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you on our next edition of The Chamber Connection. Thanks for tuning in to The Chamber Connection. Be sure to check out information on the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce website, our Facebook page, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We look forward to you connecting with us and tuning in next week.